Now, if you watch Hidden Secrets of Money, one of the things that happened toward the end of the Roman Empire is free distributions of wheat to a lot of basically social programs. Free distributions of wheat was free food. It's the equivalent of our SNAP program, and it happens when a society is in the process of falling apart, when an empire is nearing its end, and it's a way to buy votes. The concept applies to everything that you're talking about in this video.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's actually turn to some of the socialism that we've already been having. Trump announces a $2,000 tariff dividend to be paid to most Americans. Okay. So President Donald Trump on Sunday announced that most Americans would receive a dividend payment of at least $2,000 paid out of U.S. tariff revenues.
Now, the part that I want to point out is that, and no concern too small for government to care about. So you showed me a couple of these frames before we started. What's the next frame?
Yeah, it's actually the same one, but posted by Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell, he is absolutely my favorite living economist. There is nobody better than Thomas Sowell. And what amazes me here is that he missed the second half of this quote, because that is the no concern too small for the government not to care about. That means they're going to intrude into your life with everything. No problem too large. Those are the things that people typically want government to try and, most of the socialist population wants government to take care of this and take care of that instead of allowing the free market to figure out how to do it. But that thing of no problem too small means the government in New York is going to be involved. They're going to be deeply involved in everybody's life. And that is a horrible thing. That's what happened. That's the USSR. That's China under Mao. So, okay.
Yeah, central planning never works in the long run. So, by the way, in fairness to Thomas Sowell, this is not his personal Twitter account. This is someone else running it. So he's not Thomas Sowell, but he shares quotes and other things that are inspired by him. So
excellent.
Yeah, just a little context there. So one other quote from Mamdani earlier in his Twitter life here. Basically, taxation isn't theft. Capitalism is.
Debates about capitalism and taxation often miss a fundamental distinction. Capitalism is built on voluntary exchange, while taxation is enforced by the threat of penalties. Critics sometimes claim capitalism is theft, but in reality, markets allow individuals to cooperate without force. Prosperity emerges when people trade freely, create value, and keep the rewards of their labor. Even in rigid socialist systems like the USSR, underground markets naturally re-emerged because human beings instinctively seek freedom in economic choices. Restricting these choices does not create equality, it suppresses innovation and opportunity, leaving society poorer and more dependent on political authority.
So I think this is completely backwards. Obviously, he's turning it around for rhetoric and for flair. But to me, this is absolutely backwards. Capitalism is freedom. You don't have to do anything unless you want to do it. And taxation is extortion. You have to do it under penalty of physical violence. So that's theft.
Violence or incarceration or both. Right.
Exactly.
And capitalism is a voluntary exchange, and it's where all prosperity comes from. So basically, he's calling for the end of prosperity and saying that taxation isn't theft. So you got to get rid of capitalism and you got to tax the hell out of anybody that has anything left after you get rid of capitalism, which is pretty much impossible. Even in the USSR, capitalism springs up. It's called the black market, illegal capitalism. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So just to sum it all up here, socialism is resentment disguised as compassion, enforced by tyranny, disguised as tolerance.
So absolutely true.
Yeah, I think that's really well phrased there. I like that a lot.
Yep.
So just to put things in perspective, I know this is a little bit reductionist. It's a little simplistic, but I think it sort of illustrates the point. If we look at a socialism or capitalism as extremes, what they look like is socialism is ownership and control of productive resources, in a centralized way, either by the state or by the collective, with the intention of distributing output according to communal priorities rather than individual property rights. So putting the group ahead of the individual. Capitalism, on the other hand, productive resources are privately owned, so the individual is ahead of the group, and individuals freely exchange goods and services in pursuit of profit, allowing prices and allocation to emerge from voluntary market interactions.
Socialism prioritizes collective control of resources and centralized decision-making, while capitalism relies on private ownership and spontaneous cooperation through markets. The defining difference is choice. Capitalism is voluntary, socialism relies on coercion. Advocates of central planning believe enforced coordination delivers fairness, but history repeatedly shows otherwise. Forced cooperation, backed by regulation, taxation, and bureaucratic oversight, often destroys the very productivity needed to sustain society. Human behavior responds to incentives, and when rewards depend on political approval rather than effort, corruption grows. Nations with higher economic freedom consistently outperform centrally managed systems in innovation, wealth, and human rights.
Yeah, the most important thing there is the word voluntary.
Voluntary.
This is all, people think that pointing a gun at a population and ordering them to cooperate with one another is somehow fairer, more benevolent than just allowing people to do business with one another and voluntarily, which is exactly what they're trying. They're trying to get everybody to work together, but they won't allow it voluntarily. They got to force it at the point of a gun. Okay.
Exactly. And so I just want to point out here that it's not like socialism is coming. It's coming. It's already here in a lot of industries in the United States. So using this layout here, we can see that there's a pretty wide distribution of how the industries are either capitalist or socialist in nature. So our K-12 education system is basically completely socialist. So is our military, our post office, veteran healthcare, and probably our military should be, but these others probably not. And we could debate any of these other industries here.
I want to debate a couple because I think Medicare, Medicaid belongs in the complete socialist. So does public housing. That belongs in the socialist category. So does food assistance. These things, I would be happy to donate a certain amount of my income to, food kitchens and stuff. Utilities belongs in this category right here. But the top three, those belong over in the socialist.
Socialism isn't just an abstract concept. Its elements already exist inside key U.S. systems. Public education, the Postal Service, public housing, SNAP, Medicare, and Medicaid operate under government control with little market competition. These programs aim to provide support, yet often create distorted incentives. In places like Puerto Rico, generous benefits discourage formal employment, pushing workers into cash labor or underground economies. Even luxury vehicles appear in subsidized housing complexes, funded by illicit income rather than productivity. These outcomes highlight a deeper truth: incentives matter. When handouts reward inactivity, productivity falls, and communities struggle to climb out of dependency.
Camp. They've got so much public housing in Puerto Rico, and then people are paid not to work, and it creates a huge problem. On my farm, we have trouble finding labor. We can't find because we're not going to pay a dollar under the table to anybody. Everything has to be done by the book here. So everything has to go through paychecks that taxes get deducted from, and everything else. Anybody here will work for you for cash. But if you offer them the same amount as just legally hiring them, they won't work because they'll lose what they call their coupons, which is the SNAP program, food stamps. They will lose government housing. And so what happens is you have a whole bunch of people that will work for cash, or they deal in drugs, living in these government-assisted facilities. And it's interesting because you go to these government assisted places, and the cool thing here is to buy one of these. I can't remember the brand, but there's these sand buggies. Basically, these. It's just a metal frame and a real powerful engine, and then they put in a $10,000 or $20,000 stereo system and drive these things around the street, which are illegal on the mainland. You see these vehicles that cost $100,000 or more in the parking lots of these publicly assisted housing facilities. It's just, and you know that that's a drug dealer. So anyway.
Well, that's all the incentive system, right? It's a terrible incentive system that people are just responding to incentives. So I don't blame anybody for responding to the incentives and taking care of themselves. That's actually the trick. Is capitalism is the best set of incentives to get people to contribute to the greater good. Is let them keep the profits, let them keep the fruit of their own labor, and don't give them handouts for staying home.
Yeah.
And this is really what it looks like at the absolute base level. This is how you create that incentive structure. If you want a socialist society, have a fiat monetary system. If you want a capitalist society, have your money be gold. And that's it. Everything else will solve itself.
Right. Because the government can't type gold into existence, where they just type fiat currency. You know, I can't remember who. I think it was Dan that said the difference between 1 and 1 trillion is 12 zeros.
Recent U.S. tariff proposals illustrate how economic policy can drift toward disguised socialism. Promising citizens a $2,000 tariff dividend sounds generous, but tariffs are ultimately paid by American consumers, not foreign governments. Importers absorb the first hit, retailers pass on the cost, and households, especially high earners, fund most of the revenue. Excluding high-income taxpayers from receiving benefits makes the redistribution even clearer. Political leaders repackage economic burdens as bonuses, reinforcing reliance on government payouts. These programs echo ancient Rome's late empire grain distributions, which were used to pacify the public while political institutions weakened behind the scenes.
Now, if you watch Hidden Secrets of Money, one of the things that happened toward the end of the Roman Empire is free distributions of wheat to a lot of basically social programs. Free distributions of wheat was free food. It's the equivalent of our SNAP program, and it happens when a society is in the process of falling apart, when an empire is nearing its end, and it's a way to buy votes. The concept applies to everything that you're talking about in this video.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. So let's actually turn to some of the socialism that we've already been having. Trump announces a $2,000 tariff dividend to be paid to most Americans. Okay. So President Donald Trump on Sunday announced that most Americans would receive a dividend payment of at least $2,000 paid out of U.S. tariff revenues. So this is not capitalism, right? This is redistribution of the fruits of someone else's labor according to a central planner.
Yeah, every importer was charged these tariffs, not China. There is no foreign entity that actually paid taxes into this thing. It all came out of the pockets of Americans. First, the importers were hurt, and then they have to pass on the costs, and it works its way up the chain to retail. And eventually, it's the consumer paying it. Now, who consumes the most? The people that make the most. And they make the most by producing more than they consume, actually. That's the reason their paychecks are high. That's the reason they've got excess cash, is because they're producing more than they consume. And so this is a redistribution of wealth, any way you look at it.
Exactly.
The foundation of any economic system is its money. Fiat currency enables governments to expand benefits, inflate budgets, and fund programs voters would never approve through direct taxation. Under a gold-backed system, such expansion is restricted because money cannot be created by decree. History, from Rome's currency debasement to Argentina's recent inflation crisis, shows that societies with uncontrolled money printing drift toward dependency and political manipulation. When wealth is distributed through policy instead of productivity, nations weaken. A thriving society requires incentives that reward work, innovation, and responsibility, principles that remain the backbone of lasting economic freedom.
And something that Trump tweeted on Truth Social here is a dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone.
Okay, so, not including the people that paid most of these taxes. They're not going to get it back. It's going to be given to other people, which buys votes. So it's going to be more low-income people that get these checks, and it means more to them. But it's just another way of buying more votes. So
exactly, it's socialism any way you look at it.
And it's if people did receive a $2,000 check, it's very hard to claw that back if the Supreme Court decision is that these tariffs are constitutionally illegal. Because the power to tax is supposed to belong to Congress, not the president.
Yeah, the power to tax is the power to destroy, right? That's what I thought you were going with that.
The $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms. Oh,
yeah. So this is what Besant said. Yeah, the $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms. It could be just the tax decreases that we're seeing in the president's agenda. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. Those are substantial deductions. LOL, you're not getting those checks. So this is basically what was promised on the campaign trail. And now it's like, oh, you're going to get a $2,000 check, but it could be the case that it's just another version, another form of packaging on what was already promised. Right.
And now, if it is a tax deduction, which, you've got to file by April 15th, that gives plenty of time to do a clawback, and then these deductions would go away. So it was just it was basically a tweet that, let me see. This is a quote from the Shawshank Redemption, a tweet that disappears like a fart in the wind.